welcome back to Word Blindness Dyslexia Exposed. Okay, today is a Monday. We always record a Monday. I'm sitting here with Brent. We're half an hour late for our recording because we were discussing what we wanted to talk about. And then we were talking about learning styles. There's all of these different things that we're going to be sharing with you guys. We're going to be doing more research. But today we wanted to talk about the campaign that we're doing in July. We touched on it in the other episodes. So whenever this goes out, I don't know where we're going to be, but why don't you share where we are? And today is July 15th. So we're recording on a July 15th, which is a Monday, 15 days into the...
Yeah, perfect. 15 days into July. And, obviously coming around the campaign, it started with July 17th is 7 years for the foundation. And Julia is so smart. She said July is, the 7th month. I'm sober right now, 7 years. So there was a lot of upside down hockey sticks. So, obviously put the campaign together. I think we put it together in a day.
We did.
Yeah, did it very quick.
I think it was 2 days because we were like, oh my gosh, July is coming up. Let's get this done. This makes sense.
Yeah, over that weekend, because July 1st was a Monday. So it was, we're doing it over that weekend. Because they're getting ready for God's Day, Canada Day.
Yeah, that's right.
And, 777 campaign, it's been amazing. We're at, let me pull it up, 6,248 and 62 cents here, 15 days into the campaign, which is absolutely phenomenal, which is amazing. The one thing that obviously everybody, any charity, they're always going to say, money, right? Everybody does. You can't run a business without money. You can't run a charity without money. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing else. You hear me talk about this all the time. The embarrassment that goes along with this. I probably sent this out to, let's just say between 30 and 40 people. And probably a net worth of $100 million in that. And I think I had 5 or 6 out of that donate. When, it's just because an embarrassment. Some of them, there's a good portion of them are dyslexic that won't donate, and they're like, oh, "What do you mean you won't donate? It should be donating to their cause." And that doesn't make sense, and that's rude. And for all the non-dyslexics, it doesn't make sense. A lot of shit I say, you say, doesn't make sense, right?
Listen.
But it's what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do, and the reason we do this tape every Monday is right now we're on a gravel road. We're trying to pave the road so everybody can drive on a smooth road, beautiful, brand new paved highway. And what I mean by that is that so every dyslexic, no matter if they're in Hollywood, no matter if they're a CEO, Fortune 500 company, or they're just us, can talk openly about their dyslexia, what goes along with it, the trauma, the embarrassment, the no self-esteem, hating who you are, what you are, and I talk about that, suicide. I don't know how many times I sat at the train, my addiction, homeless, selling my Stanley Cup ring. These are all entwined in my dyslexia. And one of the richest people in the world, I showed you, a clip that completely sidetracked the trauma that he's had and wouldn't talk about it. If he can't talk about it, he's one of the richest people in the world, then who is? So when I say every dollar counts, literally every dollar counts. How many calls, and Julie, you can talk here in a second, is how many calls I get for kids wanting to commit suicide. I've had 12-year-olds, right? So every dollar goes more than people ever understand. So it's a great start. It's been awesome. It's been fun to see. It's been fun to watch it take up and have so many people participate.
And also, I'll give a little context. So when we were coming up, all of a sudden, so I do a lot of stuff with the Boxer Rescue. So basically, I was thinking when you were talking about, and we were like 777s. Okay, when do I stop to donate? Like if I'm seeing something on social media, when do I say like, oh wait, let me just go click and go to like Venmo or click on it and do it, or run to my purse and get my credit card? Because there's times where I'm out that I'm like, oh, I would love to donate to that, but I don't have my credit card, and then I forget about it, right? So I said to you, it's when something is very specific, and what we're doing in the overall, what the goal of and the mission of the foundation, sometimes it's hard for people to wrap their heads around, right? When we're talking about, we're going to change it and it's like, donate. It's like, okay, well, they can't tangibly grab on something. So that's kind of like where my brain went when I said to you, let's just try this, because there's like a lot of times with this specific Boxer Rescue, they'll have an intake, they'll have a dog that needs X, Y, and Z. And it's like help to that cause. And that's literally every time it's a specific dog. Whenever they do big fundraising things, it doesn't stop me as much. So whenever it's like a specific dog and I know exactly what's happening with that, I go, literally Apple Pay or run, before I had Apple Pay, ran to my purse and I would do that. So I said to you, I'm going to start asking people. So I did on Instagram yesterday. So that would have been the 14th. I did. And I said, what do people do? And I've had multiple people now comment, and it said basically, I've donated when the cause hits close to home, where I, family, or friends have been affected in some way. And that makes sense, right? Now, there's a but there, because if you think about this makes a lot of sense. If there's something that hits home, but you haven't dealt with it and you have embarrassment or you have not great feelings about it, 100%. You're not donating to it because it's like, I don't want to acknowledge that, even 100%. Though it's something where, and I think that probably goes to other things, but I don't know, like this is where I would love to, like, this is where the psychologist comes in, right? Like this is where
I'm right here. How can I help you?
But right. It's exactly like that, where yes, 100%. I agree with the people coming in and talking about that. But when it's something that is still raw, that hasn't been dealt with, when you have severe trauma around it, it's hitting you in a different way and you're pushing it away. You're like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. And you don't even really realize that you're doing it. A lot of people don't even realize they're doing it. It's just like, I need to kind of separate myself from that, right? And a lot of times they're not getting the message. They're the people that really need to hear that it's hitting close to home.
No, 100%. It's one of those it's almost like a bad habit you don't even realize you're doing.
Yeah.
For example, there's so much of my childhood that is Black. That's trauma. That's your brain protecting myself. So kind of the same thing is, I've done use myself as an example. I've done so many times, for so long, I don't even realize I do it. So they're not purposely, that he should be doing it. He's not purposely not doing it. Like, fuck them. We're not going to do that just because it's just like, not that at all.
Right.
Not like nothing to that effect. It's taking a left turn instead of going a right turn. So he's not purposely trying to be an asshole or whatever with it. Absolutely not. That's a defense mechanism that's ingrained in him now, or her, because that's what we've done our whole lives, because we're born this way. So that's the hardest part about this. Trying to do something that's never been done in the world. And there's so many people, like drug and alcohol. Everybody, some people I have to work with, the families, like, they're picking the bottle, or the drug over the family. It's not that. It's that trauma. It's that pain. It might be so severe that they can't go there.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I just had I was just talking to someone on regarding trauma, and they're a psychotherapist. And it was actually, I recorded it for your next stop. And what she said was really interesting. And we've talked about this a number of times, but sometimes people, when they think of trauma, they're like, they go to the darkest spot and they're like, I don't have trauma. I had a pretty good life and da-da-da. And one of the things that she said which is really interesting. And I was like, I love how she put this. It was trauma. We all have it, which obviously we all have it, but it can be as small as your mom gave your brother the last piece of gum when you were 5 and it did something to you, right? You were like, there was a hurt in there. And someone might say, oh, that's not a big deal. But the way that child interpreted it gave them this message. And then it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is a trauma. So that's where a lot of times when we're talking about things and people are like, oh, trauma, they're talking about some deep, deep, deep stuff. We have repeated this a number of times. Trauma, like my teacher calling me retarded in front of the whole class. Yes, people can see where that is. But that then gives a narrative. Like we don't know what that does, or we do, like knows what that does to the brain. And then it's kind of almost like this spiral.
And I always say every one of our traumas is deep. Right. Meaning, because your whatever your trauma was is the deepest trauma ever because it's yours. Right. And it's this person's listening and that person's. Now, what, and why I say it that way is because what does that mean to you? What happened to you? I don't know. And that means different things for each person.
Mm-hmm.
It was that, somebody that was, abandoned, was that, it's the deepest because it's yours. It's the worst. It's because it's yours. And, but what exactly it is doesn't matter. Right. It's the same thing as, feelings. No right or wrong. That's how you feel. And, again, prime example myself, right? We talk about this, I will not ask for help. How many people have let me down in my life? I won't ask for help. It's, getting ready for the golf event here in 61 days.
Yeah.
Again, more people let me down, and when I let people, ask for help, let me down, and believe somebody's going to do what they say, and help me with the foundation. They don't. And where does it take me?
Takes you down a dark spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, it's like, okay, what's wrong with me? Start, why me? Meaning, like, you said you're going to help me out. Why not? Am I not good enough? And that's the natural of our landscape in our brain, because from the time we grabbed that first book, we started struggling.
Right. And it is one of those things where it is etched into, there's like a pathway that it continues and continues. And the more it keeps happening, it continues and continues. And to break it, it takes a lot of work, and it takes, and it takes the acknowledging, and you know it. And I feel like there's been times where you've done like some big strides, right? And it's like, okay. And then all of a sudden it's like, nope, you're getting kicked right back down.
2 steps forward, 1 step back. Obviously you're still moving forward, but that's why I was talking about the self-esteem. That's why it's so important. We've been knocked down 10 million more times than a normal person. So we're 10 million times deeper in that dark hole, and I can climb back up. But the stupidest thing to a non-dyslexic, someone not responding to a text message within, doesn't have to be immediately, within, not a day or whatever it is, can take me down. Because then you start questioning yourself. Why what's wrong with me? Why can't respond? Like, you don't like me? These are things that we start questioning, because that's all we've done our whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just something for someone to hear a different side. and I think in the last episode, we did ask people, I think we touched on the 7-7 that we were going to be doing something. We also would love to hear, and we did say that again, like what are things that, if it's different than something close to home, these are different things. What are things that grab you that you stop and say,
idea campaign ideas, you
right.
know, please, you know, all ideas are great ideas. Because you never know.
Never know.
With our brain, we probably haven't thought of it.
Right.
Because squirrel ran by the front of us, and we're still chasing that squirrel.
we turn back. Well, and so I want to segue this just a second, because we are going to go deeper into this, because this is something that has come up multiple times, and it is, and we're just going to scratch the surface here, but learning styles. We talked about this in the beginning. How you learn, how you interpret, especially when you're working on teams and in corporations. Like that really is when there's multiple people, how does one get information in, and then how do they get it out? And each person, everyone does it different. There are, like, as we have talked about, the love languages, right? There are words to these learning styles, but what's really interesting, and I believe I know I shared this with you. I don't know if I shared this with the audience, but back in the day when I used to do some fitness coaching, and there was a seminar we took, and it was about your brain. This is an interesting story for me to share, because one, I was with all of these women that I absolutely adored. We were really like building these great things. And the woman that was facilitating said, "We're going to take a test." And I immediately started like swallowing like this, and I was getting a little sweaty, and I was like, "Oh fuck, what is she talking about? We're taking a test." Now, in this, and I will say, and we've talked about this a million times, I am confident. You know, there's times where, yes, maybe I'm not as confident, but I am overall pretty confident. So the group of women that I was with saw me as more of a leader, and as someone that's been in this and has, you know, was building a business in this fitness. And so for them to, and no one really noticed except the two people that were sitting on the side, because I started getting real fidgety. They're like, "You good?" And I was like, no, I don't know what kind of test we're taking, and I'm getting a little anxious. And they're like, "Oh, I'm sure it's going to be whatever." They put this piece of paper down, and they wanted us to draw the image that was on the screen on the paper. It took me right back to testing, dyslexic testing. It took me back to when Montgomery had to get tested. And I do remember I was hormonal. When am I not hormonal? But it was like that time of the month where I was hormonal. So I was a little extra sensitive. My eyes like welled up, and I started literally being like, "Oh my gosh, okay." As I was starting to draw it, I looked at my paper, and I looked at the girl next to me, and literally hers was perfect. And mine looked like I was probably 2 years old. Like it didn't even look like a kindergarten. Like it was
like that picture I got from my mom when I was 5 years old.
Oh, 100%. Exactly. It looks like like I could not copy from what was on the paper, put it there. And I remember two of the people across were like, "Yes, that was so cool." And everyone was looking around, and all of a sudden someone caught my eye, and they're like, "You good?" And I just started bawling.
Well,
and of course it was like, "Oh, Juliet, what is going on?" And I was like, "Okay, I'm having a thing right now, tests." And everyone's like, "Okay, this is so out of character." So we actually got into a conversation. I was like, "A lot of you don't know, school is really hard to me. I was, whatever. I'm dyslexic, da, 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 da." So it was like, "Oh my gosh. Okay." So the whole point of me telling you this is there's all of these different categories of, they're called brain types. And the test comes from NASA, and it's because you don't want the same brain type in the shuttle. When something goes wrong, you don't want all the people having all the same skill sets. So you want each brain to be in the shuttle. So like each brain can be like, "Okay,
that'd be awful. I stuck for like a year in a shuttle with somebody else with a different brain." Oh.
Now I think they put them where they're complementary brains, right? Like it's complementary, like, okay, but yes, right, different. So my brain is a direction changing brain, and that like it has nothing to do with the people that are like, "Oh, it's attention deficit." Nothing to do with ADHD or dyslexia. But what that is I can change direction in a moment. It doesn't mean I can multitask, because some people are like, oh, I am not actually a great multitasker at all. Like, I'm not a great multitasker, but I can change in a moment. I can be talking about something, go to the next step, go back to the subject, go back to this. So I can work on multiple different projects, especially like with the company that with FedTech. I can work on all different things. And it doesn't tweak me. There's people that can't do that. They need to see it through, and there's nothing wrong. It's not that my brain is better or my brain is worse.
No.
It's just these interesting things. So when you think about these kind of brains in corporations, right? And you also think about which people, like what kind of people you attract, what kind of people you like working with better, what kind of people you work better with. Because sometimes you might like someone, oh, I love how their brain works, but then you start doing a project together and you're like, okay, what's happening here? Why aren't we on the same page? We seem like we're missing, or it's like a beautiful dance.
And to that point, how many people actually say what you just said, though? I like how their brain works. Zero.
Yeah, there's not many people.
We work good together. Okay, great. Why? There's that why. Like, okay, you work good together. You know, do you complement each other? Great. Okay, why?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why is what we're trying to break down, because as you just said, oh, draw that picture. Most of those people in that room, it's like, oh, that's easy.
So easy.
Right? Or I tell people, some people, dyslexic, if you have two pieces of paper side by side, you got one word on one page, it's hard to take it to that next page. They're like, what are you talking about? So it's having more understanding of what that person, well, we always talk about trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. When it comes to the brain side of things that we're talking about here, most can't. Most are think they're, there's only one way to do things.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, again, you talk about the self-esteem, you talk about knowing yourself, and you talk about, not only knowing yourself, but how you work. So if you have all three of those, you have the self-esteem, you know how you learn and how you can also talk and share to other people, how you can teach, and you can be able to kind of adjust when you're working with people, that employee, that person is going to do really amazing things. So I'll take it again. So I have the self-esteem. I know how I work. However, right now in my life, I'm figuring out, like, so I just did a project, and with our chief science officer, we've done a couple different projects. This project, she and I, we actually afterwards were like, oh my God, we were so good, because we've done this now like 4 or 5 times with each other, that the first time it was a shit show. Like, we got frustrated with each other. It was like, oh my gosh, I don't, like, why can't, like, this is not working. I'm really frustrated here. But we talked about it, because we both are confident in who we are. And we were able to have an open conversation about, okay, I didn't like how you did this. I didn't like how you did this. How about we try this? What if we try this way the next time? So then the next project we did, it was a little clunky, but it wasn't as clunky. And this one, it was amazing. Now, when the final project we had to get approved, it was like, oh wait, we need to change a lot of stuff. And then we took it back and we did it. But it's not putting it on us as I'm not good enough. I was wrong. In the beginning, when I first started this job, I might have been like, oh my God, I'm over my head. But now I'm not. So it's also doing that work in the time that you're doing it as well.
And that comes back, it comes back first off for understanding and knowing yourself, right? And not lying to yourself, or not trying to do, it's knowing yourself. That's what, it's always what I always say is the 2 best days of your life is the day you're born and the day you fall in love with yourself. And that's loving who you are and the flaws and how you are and how you operate. And we look in the mirror and say, I love you, know it, feel, and believe it. That's knowing yourself, right? And you know yourself now. You've grown. You love yourself, so that you're able to approach these things, in this new position, and to be able to have these conversations. Okay, I know how I operate. And, first when you said, train wreck, okay, great. But you're able to have that conversation because you know yourself, right? You're not trying to be a chameleon. And right. How does she think I need to be to work? No, this is who I am. It's not an attitude. This is who I am. I am who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's easier to put yourself in somebody else's shoes because you know who you are.
Right.
And it's not, not left-handed or right-handed. You can see that difference. No, it's, handle me a Google Drive, take your Google Drive, put it on the tire of my truck, and let me back over it.
Right.
But some people are like, oh, I love it, right?
Well, and
great.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's one of the things with the foundation is the goal is to have that person be able to understand and how, so when they go into that corporation, like, again, I'm very fortunate because where I work, but like, think about, take my situation that I just told you. And I was working for a boss that didn't understand me, didn't get me, didn't have patience, and wasn't willing to watch things grow. Think about the amount of stress that would be put on a person. And that is a lot of companies out there. And I'm not going to say
coaching. Look at me coaching.
Exactly.
Obviously we've been friends for year and a half. Coaching has it not been a nightmare for me? I came back every day. I'm not almost in tears. I was completely, I was coaching at Hoffman Estates Park District. I had people tell me every day, you had no idea what you're doing. You're an idiot. You're dumb. You can't coach. Then I have kids that never wanted me to get off the ice. I had so much fun. They know better. But you can only hold you're dumb, stupid, and lazy for so long. And that's why I still wake up every day thinking I'm dumb, is because I've been told that my whole life.
Right. And that's the narrative that needs to be changed. And that's what the big picture, taking it aside from this, 777's campaign, the big picture of what the foundation, the Sopel Foundation, and you guys can go to sopelfoundation.org. You can follow Brent on all the socials. Word blindness, you can also go to the socials and find like little clips, but they're pretty much on all the pages. But that is the overall goal, the mission, and all of the things that we're doing is that kid in the chair, that we give that kid in the chair the tools, we give the people around that kid in the chair the tools to be able to say, okay, we know how you learn, we see you, we understand you, let's do this together and let's help you. So when you become an adult, you are an adult that's also going to help people around you. You're going to have that understanding because you like who you are. You're going to be able to be more of, an employee or a boss that's going to be like, okay, I see other people learn different. Let me take that top. Let me take my corporation and say, hey, let's do an activity and find out how everyone's brains work and let's figure this out. I mean, that should be something that should be done, in my opinion, right away. And in any kind of things, coaches should know how kids interpret and get this. This should be something that should be front and center. And that is one of the things.
I said to a couple guys who run a massive company, who they are, and I could say, I said, you guys are like a $350 million company, something like that. I said, you go and do a presentation for, $500,000 or whatever that is, and you've got 10 people in that room. Those 10 people learn differently, but you're pitching them the same way. I said, that doesn't make sense. I said, what you should do is, after your presentation, go back and ask each one a question. Ask 10 questions. You can ask 10 different questions to find out how each one learn. Now, then you can find out, okay, after the presentation, maybe I need to go and talk to person 2 and person 4 because I know they didn't fully understand what I was trying to say.
Yeah. And does it take work? 100%. But once you get that system in place, the hard work is taken and your company is more efficient.
100%. You're going to close, okay, now let's just say out of those 10 people, there's 6 that didn't understand. So now you go, if you go, you're going to lose that deal because, let's just straight up vote, 6-4. You're losing that deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like myself, as we talk about how I can read people and I know what's coming and right? It's a skill of mine, right? So could I be in that room and flip that? No problem. I could learn that in seconds. I can figure that out. So everything takes time, work to get through, to understand, to get there. But once you do, if you're, just using this company as an example, if everybody understood what you were saying, you have a better chance of closing that deal than not. Am I right?
Yeah. And think about when we were at, when we won't name where we were, but we were sitting there and there was a presentation being given to us. And this is actually, it makes me giggle. It was so funny. And I don't know that we ever actually recorded because there's.
I don't think we have actually. Now you mention it, yeah.
No, yeah, I don't think this is actually hilarious.
The drum roll. Go ahead.
So we're sitting in a presentation. I went to Chicago, and there was 6 of us.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
6 of us.
So 5 of us, one presenter, and then 5 of us. Yes.
Right, and we got this beautiful folder, and it had all these leaflets in it. Now, what I was taking knowledge. You and I sat next to each other.
Yeah. So let's there's 3 people on one side of the table, and then there's 3 people on the other side. So then Juliet and I are together on one side.
And the way we took out the papers is we took all the papers out, and we're looking at them and took them out of order. And we both did it. And I didn't realize until later. And the reason why I then became very aware of what was happening, because every time the person that was presenting was like, we're on this paper. And these papers they were full of all words. Now they were highlighted.
And there's 15 pages or
yeah. And they were highlighted. So like the person did take the time to put like a header in their own handwriting of what the paper was. Totally great. She knew she was that there was a couple of people going to be dyslexic. So she did that, which was really nice. Now, I would say I
wish there was a camera in there.
It was so comical. So there was probably the 3rd piece of paper where I was like, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm fucking lost. This is taking me back to history or whatever class where it's like, take the paper out. And I literally cannot find it. I'm looking, I fucking look to the left, and Brent's sitting to the left. He's doing the same thing as I'm doing. So this was the first time. And I was like, shit, I'm cheating off the wrong person. He doesn't know what he's doing. And now the other person to my right.
You were more organized. Mine shit was everywhere.
Well, because then I put it all together because I was like, oh my God, we look like 2 4-year-olds. So then I was like, I tried to look at the person to the other side of me, and they were too far, so I couldn't see. And I literally was getting back to took me back to school where I was trying to cheat and I couldn't cheat because I couldn't see. And this person was the wrong person. And I think it was the 3rd time, I just start laughing. And I was like, I'm sorry. I just have to pause. I was like, Brent and I are so lost. We have no idea where you are. And I all of a sudden I looked and I shared with them that I'm cheating off the wrong person. And she starts laughing. Now the person that was sitting to the right of us was like, yeah, I've been watching you too. And I think he was laughing, but very stoic, but was laughing like these 2 numbnuts. But the reason, and I'm saying numbnuts in the nicest, funniest way, because it did look like we were total messes, but we were the same mess. Oh. Which was hilarious because you start looking off my paper and then we catch each other's eye and then we're like,
literally it was like I said, if we could replay this, then the other guy's sitting on the chair, everything's perfectly organized. What the fuck's wrong with me? And that's why I'm like, okay, what's wrong with me? Why did they all know where the fuck they are? Then I got Julia next to me, and it's like take a binder to Kim, you drop, and papers are everywhere. That's her piling in front of her and piling in front of me, and everybody else is just that nice and specific. And then what's wrong with me?
Right, and there was some PhDs in there, and I. See, and this is where it's interesting, right? And you maybe were saying that to yourself. But again, because I was like, oh my God, I've been in this situation. I was laughing, but I was like, I have to make a joke about this because it is so comical, but it's also so much what we're talking about. It's being played out right here. And, the individual that was doing it said, I did. And I said, listen, you did a great job by putting the words. I said, I don't know if you saw, but we took the stuff out and mixed everything up. So then we didn't realize that you were going in order, which and I haven't been
in a lot of those rooms, right? So that's new. Those rooms are still new to me. Like not for you. You've been through that. You've been in those situations. You are. So it's newer for me. So I'm like, And then I do start questioning
Yeah,
those
and start
things.
sweating a little bit. Yeah, and you feel a little bit. I mean, I definitely, even when we were on the college campus, I think I said to you, I was like, oh my God, this is like it. I definitely will take back. I have to pause because I know what to say to myself now, but I will stop and be like, okay, I feel not less than, but not as smart. I still give myself, even though I have confidence, I still at times will stop and do that. And I'm like, no. But then I have to talk myself up, right? Nope. You're here because of why are you here, and tell myself why I'm there.
Yeah.
But I still do that whether I'm confident or not. I think that's human nature, but it doesn't still feel good. And thank goodness the people that were around, they were kind and they were nice, and it wasn't like you were with people that were, would make you feel stupid, right? So it wasn't that they were making us feel stupid at all. We were able to laugh about it, and so it was a teachable moment because they were like, oh, this is so interesting. Okay, wow, right?
Yeah.
Because they had very similar, even though they probably had different learning styles, they still were more similar than the two of us sitting next to each other.
Two complete bombs went off next to us.
And that's where this is what's so interesting too. And this is where I think it was cool for them is I'm a female, you're a male, yes, we're in the same sort of age group.
Here it is.
Yeah, I still have it somewhere. Right. Exactly. But dyslexia doesn't discriminate. It doesn't, it's, you're a professional, ex-professional hockey player, I'm whatever, woman in this field over here, woman, hear me roar. But I'm saying like we are so different, but then there's that similarity of the dyslexia. And that's why when we talk to people on the podcast and we talk to people out that we connect with that are dyslexic, that maybe haven't connected with people, they're like, oh my gosh, you get it. Okay, that's really cool. You get it. And that's the whole reason why we're sharing that story, because there is this bond and the similarity. We sat next to each other because we felt comfortable. It was like, okay, like that we feel a little intimidated in this space, but we're going to sit next to each other to kind of do that. And that's what we want to create and help the masses.
There's connection, and quick, when I was a couple years old in Detroit, a buddy of mine was coaching for an NHL team. We're out to dinner night before a game, and one of the guys on this team is dyslexic. He happened to kind of walk through the door. He came over and introduced me. Nice to meet you. We had a quick conversation. I said, I wanted to say to him, I just want to let you know, nice to meet you. I'm dyslexic too. And the smile he got on his face, and he walked away. My buddy's like, dude, what the fuck? I've never seen a smile like that on his face. First time I met him, maybe had a 2-minute conversation because we knew who I was. A quick 2-minute conversation. Nice to meet you. I'm just like, he's like, I've never seen a smile that big in my life around him. Yeah, because he knew I understood.
100% he knew. And that's the relatability. And I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you again for joining Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. You know what I say every single time. Like, rate, review, and share. You do not know who needs to hear this episode. We'll see you again for another episode next week.